Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Thursday, August 15th, and this week, Gen Z joins gig work, Uber fights lawsuits, and issues with Robotaxis. LegalRideshare breaks it down. And from LegalRideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Bankrate. Bryant, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday, Jared. Great to be back. A little rainy here, but that's okay. We're still out and about. We're still moving.
We're still moving. We're still out and about, still having a good time. And actually, you had quite a busy week so far. You were at Rideshare Rodeo. You had a great segment this week that people tuned into, which is really great info. Those guys are great. As you know, we love these guys.
They are. It's always fun to hang out and just shoot the old shoot, I suppose.
That's the PG version, I guess. So the PG version.
PG version of This Week in Rideshare. Yeah, but it's always nice to see Steve and Kim, and we appreciate them having us on, and so that we can talk to the audience and provide any resources or information that we can.
Yeah, and as we've been doing, we're going to start this segment off with the viewer comments. These are typically about responses from our last episode. So we're going to go right into it. This is from Gig Father, which I love that name. It says, good to know who to contact, but hopefully I never need to. Thank you for helping drivers. Totally agree. We don't want you guys to get in accidents, but obviously if you do, we're here to help. We're here to support you guys. This is from Matthew Kennedy. He said, this was very helpful. This is in regards to the Rideshare Rodeo segment that Bryant did. He said, I know a lot of drivers who don't have health insurance and avoid going to the hospital in all circumstances. More drivers need to see this and understand you are here for free. I have you in my phone. So that's great stuff, Brian. I mean, as you and I have discussed, as you talk about always, they need to know. They need to know how to protect themselves both financially and physically. And if they don't go to the hospital, like you said, it's not good, truly.
Yeah, that's why we do these episodes with people in the community. We want to get the word out there that, one, Legal Rideshare is here to help. Our services don't cost anything out of pocket. Consultations are always free. And if you get in an accident, if you're injured, the best possible thing that you can do is just give us a call. Make sure that you understand your rights, that you don't have to wait to go get medical treatment. There are resources available for you. And there's insurance for you to tap into. So a lot of drivers really shoot themselves in the foot by waiting too long, by not getting the help that they need. And then a month passes, 2 months pass, and they realize, man, I should have called somebody. And then a lot of times it's too late. So sooner's better. Reach out to us. I'll tell you exactly what you need to know. I'll tell you what your options are. If you just be straightforward. I don't have health insurance. I'm worried about being deactivated. Whatever your concerns are, we'll walk through them and we'll explain why you don't have anything to worry about. We can help get you back on your feet, get you the treatment that you need, and put some money in your pocket along the way.
Absolutely. I second that. And that being said, we're going to jump into our topics of this week. We're going to start with the first one here. Gen Z joins the gig work movement, and this is from NBC Miami. And they reported, quote, according to Bankrate, more than 48% of Gen Zers and 44% of Millennials has a side hustle. Also, parents or guardians of kids younger than 18 are 45% more likely to have a side hustle. It also says, this study from Bankrate states 37% of people who have side hustles use their income to fund purchases, 36% for regular living expenses. And it goes on to talk about more percentages. 16% of them are hoping to make it their own revenue stream. Bryant, this is something we talk about a lot. I think at least once a month we discuss. It's either Robotaxis or the growth of gig work, right? But this is a little different. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but it does seem that gig works originally seemed to appeal as a way to be a main source of income, and it's now seems to be adopting to the younger generations as, well, I could use a quick buck and it can add to my wallet.
Yeah, it's not surprising that we're seeing the younger generation step into the gig economy. They're now of age where a lot of them do have jobs. They're just entering the job force, and they're realizing that it costs a lot of money to survive in this world. A lot of times just the one salary from your everyday job is not enough to provide for your family or keep a roof over your head, or maybe just live the lifestyle that you want to live. A lot of these Gen Zers and young millennials have big aspirations. They want to live in high-rise buildings in metropolis areas. They want to have the new clothes or whatever it may be, and just a traditional income in a economy that's frankly hurting. Inflation is high. It's just not surprising to me to see that a lot of these kids, young adults now, are entering the gig force, that they're kind of changing the way that the older generation thought of it. As you mentioned, a lot of people that have been doing it for a decade plus are treating it as a full-time job, or a huge portion of their income. And it seems like the younger generation is stepping in and, like you said, doing it more on a gig basis, which people have always done that, but it seems like that's how they're harnessing this type of work.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. We've spoken to gig workers and specifically drivers who, had retired and were using the side hustle or the gig work driving, to just either just to have a little extra money or just something on the side or for vacation. So it wasn't always that, but we have heard many a times that Uber's original lure, 10 years ago or even 8 years ago, was this was so good that a lot of drivers stopped doing anything else. And so as Uber slowly squeezed them, and it's almost like the frog in the slow boiling kettle, they got squeezed. And I think it's different with Gen Z because, once again, they saw that coming down the line and thought, we're not gonna do it that way, but we're definitely going to utilize it for what it's worth. I have a lot of friends who are much younger than me, and all of them have some sort of side hustle, some sort of gig work. Some are doing delivery. Some have their own Etsy shops. Some have their own small businesses. Everyone's, it's just it's like you said, they're figuring out how to make it work for them, and good for them. I mean, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I do think it's important to just, follow up on exactly what you were saying is this, when Uber and Lyft started, they really billed themselves as gig work, as side hustle, as here, make yourself a couple extra dollars. And that's how people originally joined that economy. It was a side hustle. People weren't just immediately quitting their day jobs and becoming Uber and Lyft drivers. But at the beginning, the pay was pretty good. The flexibility was really good. People really got used to that lifestyle, and they said, all right, I'm going to change my life to make this my job. I'm going to quit my 9 to 5. I'm going to buy a new vehicle. And they really, along the way, found that there was a bait and switch, that what was once really great money, really great flexibility, allowed these workers to use this as a full-time job, was just no longer feasible. It became, after they changed their lives, something that wasn't sustainable. The money wasn't there. If you wanted to earn enough to keep a roof over your head, you had to work all sorts of crazy hours. So I think that the older gig generation, the older Uber and Lyft drivers, a lot of them fell prey to a change in the algorithm, a change in the business model. And Gen Z and the Millennials seem to have learned something and gone back to the original form of, let me do this to make a couple extra bucks. And that, it seems to be working for them.
Yeah, well said. I think, it's interesting. We both kind of have the same thoughts on that. And and again, as we talk about every week, it feels like it's growing, it's adapting, it's evolving. One thing it's certainly not is it's not going anywhere. So it's just a matter of us as a society dealing with this and figuring out how it works, obviously. Our second story is an interesting one. I know, Bryant, you'll have a lot to say on it. Uber is looking to stomp out lawsuits. This is from the New York Times. They reported the company is seeking to place a measure on Nevada's ballot that would drastically limit the amount of money that lawyers could collect when they brought successful lawsuits. If this measure passes, it will make it less attractive and in some cases financially impractical for plaintiffs' lawyers to file such suits. This initiative is being spearheaded by Nevadians for Fair Recovery, a political action committee created this year by, shocker, Uber and its lobbyists. The company has put $5 million into this PAC, and its only fiscal backer campaign finance records. So basically, the company has put $5 million into it, and they're the only ones backing it. So, wow, yeah. So they are. I feel like they're doing. Again, I definitely need to hear your thoughts on this. It feels like a Prop 22, but this time it's headed right for the lawyers.
Yeah, it's an interesting plan of attack that they have here. I'll tell you that I don't see this going anywhere. I don't think that it's a good measure. I don't, and let me explain why. You're looking at me, you're saying, here's the lawyer. Of course, he doesn't want his fee cut. I don't think that this makes sense for anybody involved, and it will only benefit the big companies, the Ubers, the Lyfts, the insurance companies that are trying to save money. Personal injury attorneys represent people at some of the darkest parts of their lives when they're injured, when they're unable to work, when they've got medical bills out the wazoo. And oftentimes, these clients don't have the financial resources at that time to pay an attorney. So the attorneys work on what's called a contingency basis, meaning we're willing to take on the risk of the case because we're confident enough in the skills that we have and our ability to collect everything that you deserve and more, that we will wait to get paid. We will take the risk of not getting paid if it's not successful. And at the end, we get a percentage. So the arrangement works out for everybody because our interests are mutually aligned. I want to do as well as I can for you. You want to do as well as you can for you. The more you make, the more I make. And there's no out-of-pocket costs. So it's a really beneficial setup for people who are in dire situations, who don't have money to pay for a lawyer, who, if they had to pay a lawyer a retainer fee, if they had to come up with $5,000 just to get the lawyer started and then get billed, X amount of dollars per hour, it would be a non-starter. So this bill, this pack that that Uber is backing and the laws that they're trying to put in place are really anti-worker. They're anti-community. They are trying to take the rights away from people when people need to be able to exercise their rights the most. I don't see any way that the plaintiffs bar in Nevada will allow this to go forward. I don't see any way that labor organizations will allow this to go forward. We're talking about a state where labor is huge. We're talking about Las Vegas. We're talking about Reno, where there's all sorts of labor movement. There's all sorts of unions. So I think this is wishful thinking on Uber's part. It's creative, but it's in my mind, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to me too. In the article, I guess the counter in the article they said, but businesses have long complained that high contingency fees drive up costs for the public and exist primarily to enrich lawyers. So first off, they don't say which businesses, they just throw the word businesses out. And I'm not really quite sure how that makes sense because just as you said, why would that be driving up costs for the public? The whole point of this is that the public can afford a lawyer, and then obviously when the settlement happens, then you get the fee from it.
Right.
It sounds like scare tactics. I don't know.
It is. And you see this often where they talk about, oh, this is raising your insurance premiums. Well, it's just not the case. What's happening is you're buying insurance for an incident that may or may not occur. So every month you're paying a premium and the insurance company's making money and the insurance company's pocket is getting bloated. And then the insurance company is whining when something goes wrong and they have to pay a settlement. Like, that's what they're here for. That's why you pay every month. If you get injured, there's going to have to be recourse. There's going to have to be payment of medical bills, payment of lost wages, pain and suffering, loss of normal life. All these different damages are built in to the insurance business. And you hear these insurance companies getting all up in arms about, oh, we had to pay out X number of claims. That's literally why you exist. That's why you're getting paid every month by every driver, by every person in the state is putting money into your pockets so that when things do go wrong, you'll be there to help. So stop whining and let's talk about what really matters is getting people back on the road, getting injured people the recovery that they deserve. And if the insurance companies would pay up and wouldn't nickel and dime the average person, then lawyers wouldn't be necessary. But I've got to step in because when they make an offer to our client, they are offering them $1,000 for all their medical bills, and then we step in and we put 50 times that in their pockets. So Um, don't tell me about who's corrupt and who's ruining the system. If insurance companies were playing by the rules, if they were paying out claims like they should be, they themselves would make lawyers obsolete. But they're the reasons why we have to be here.
Yeah, and I can second that. If you don't believe Bryant, which you certainly should, I've spoken to drivers, and I have been in London, and I have talked to drivers and gig workers in places like Brazil, and they are just absolutely fascinated that how we have to fight here to get the insurance and get the protections that Bryant you were just talking about. In other countries, it's just okay. Well, you got into an accident, you're paying into it, you have insurance, the insurance pays, you're done. America is really interesting in the fact that Brian's here to help you, to fight for your behalf. So it's like you said, it's scare tactics. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but it's a ballsy move. So I guess we're just going to see when that happens and what the result is. Hopefully it's for the worker and not Uber. We're going to head to our final story. Uber's CEO sees major issues with Tesla's Robotaxi plan, and this is from The Street. And they reported, quote, the Uber CEO said that it is, quote, not clear to him that the average Tesla owner will want to have their car be ridden in by a complete stranger. He also stated that allowing Tesla owners to rent out their cars for taxi services will make it difficult to manage the peaks and valleys associated with supply and demand. He also highlights that the rideshare industry is very different from the business of building vehicles, which Tesla has expertise in, and that a lot can go wrong, such as car accidents, passengers getting sick or losing items in cars, or wanting to pay in cash. Brian, the first thing I thought here, it sounds like the pot calling the kettle black. He's basically, is he talking about himself or is he talking about Tesla?
Right. It's crazy. I can tell you that Uber obviously sees Tesla as a threat. Tesla is further along, I would say, in terms of the self-driving technology than Uber. I know Uber's got their hands in that pot and they're working on it. They're deploying vehicles, but Tesla's been doing this for a while now. And I think Uber's probably a little scared of Tesla beating them to the everyday market in terms of autonomous vehicle. The fact that Tesla does have this quote unquote fleet of vehicles at its disposal, if they can convince their lessees, their owners of the vehicles to put their vehicles out on the road and rent them for rideshare use, it's ready-made. It can go, and Uber's not really in that position. They don't have a fleet like that, so that has to be frightening for them from a business perspective. I will agree that I don't know that every Tesla owner is going to be in on this, but I would imagine that there's enough when you start telling people that they can be monetizing their possessions when they're not being used. Like if I'm asleep in my house and my car can be out making me money, that doesn't sound like a bad proposition. So there's certainly going to be some Tesla owners who are interested, and I guess we'll see how many are, and I guess we'll also see just how good the technology is, because at this point I don't see driverless Teslas operating all around, and I'm not sure that the technology is ready for a bunch of them cruising around our city streets. But it sounds like Tesla has their sight on deploying those vehicles, and Uber seems to be shaking in its boots.
Yeah, it feels like a public plea to Tesla. Honestly, it feels like he's saying this like, hey, bro, you can't do this without me, and here's the reasons. And we saw this before, actually. A while ago, and I feel like we covered it on This Week in Rideshare years ago. He made a similar plea right before they launched Proposition 22. I've noticed that the Uber CEO is really clever at first going public and kind of doing a peace offering, which sets the stage for what he's doing behind the scenes. It seems to be a pattern. And it seems like from what he's saying, like, hey, here's all the things that you don't know that we know. But something that's really interesting, because I'm in a lot of the Uber and Lyft and gig worker groups around the country, and I talk to these guys and gals, and he's right about, you're not used to, Tesla owners. It's not the same as how we handle rideshare. That's true. However, there's starting to become an increasing amount of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers who own Teslas, who know the system, who know how to handle passengers, who know what goes wrong in them. And I can see them looking at this and saying, well, yeah, I'm already doing this for another company. Why wouldn't I do it for myself? I think it's
Right.
smart.
It is, and I think you're right that Tesla and Uber do seem to have uh, different strengths and different weaknesses, and perhaps there is a partnership to be had. But if the Uber driver can monetize his vehicle without him in it, that that is going to change rideshare. That's there's going to be an opportunity to have a driver in the car at least for a while, and then when that driver goes home and decides I'm going to take a break or I'm going to sleep or eat or whatever it may be, if my car can still be making me money, it's going to offer a lot more flexibility for the driver. I know eventually Uber is looking to replace the driver with autonomous vehicles, but for some period of time, there's going to be an overlap where both are needed, and maybe that driver can double dip.
Right. It's like every week we joke about it, but it's actually become a trend now. Every week we have an update on self-driving cars, robotaxis. So who knows what next week's going to bring, right? So that is our stories for this week. But Brian, I will give you the final say until we head off into what I'm calling my early weekend.
Well, before we head into early weekend, we always remind everybody that Legal Rideshare is available for free consultations. We're always here to answer questions that you have about accidents, injuries, insurance claims. We represent drivers, passengers, victims, anybody who's injured in a rideshare related accident. We cover things like medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, you name it. Please give us a call. Cases don't get better with time. Call us right away. You can find all of our contact information at legalrideshare.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. And as I like to say, that is the end of This Week in Rideshare. See you next week.